Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done a tutorial on this page, so I wanted to stop and revisit some old ideas and then also share some new strategies with you guys. For this first video, I'm going to go right into it talking about / mainly revisiting the hammering strategy. I previously had put out a tutorial on this, but it was in a horizontal mode and I wanted to take a bit more time and show you guys some more of the steps closer up. So all you need for this is pretty simple. You just need a razor blade, whatever parts you want to cut off, and a heavy object. I use this pair of pliers, but you could really use any heavy weighted object. We'll go a little bit into glue application in that too once we take off the parts. But to get right into it, the first step, which is one of the most important, is just lining up the initial cut. You want to grab your razor blade, and wherever you want the cut to be, for this mod, we're going to be doing it right before the handguard. You just want to place the blade onto that slot and give it a little bit of pressure so that there's a groove in the plastic. This helps because you want to, again, with your other hand, put the razor blade back into that groove or just hold it in. And then using one hand, hold that blade 90 degrees to the board. So you want it to be straight up. My camera's at an angle right now, so it doesn't show it that well, but you want the blade to be as straight to the board as possible. That way you don't get like a slanted cut. And then you want to grab your weighted object. I wouldn't recommend a hard, heavy push, because if you have it slightly off angle and you do a hard, heavy push, you're going to have a huge cut that's off angle. If you just try to keep it steady and do a lot of several light taps, it'll cut through it. And you can definitely hear near the end once it starts sounding a little bit different. I could have tapped a bit harder there too, but you're just trying to keep the blade as straight as possible. You end up with a little bit of these flex marks right on the edge of the cut, typically on whatever face that is against you. But these can be removed with your fingernail, and if your fingernail isn't strong enough, you can literally take the back of the razor blade and just scratch that against those, and that removes all the crease marks on the plastic. Same thing with the other end. If you have those crease marks, take your fingernail, take the back of the razor blade or whatever, just press those out. So my understanding, that's just the plastic kind of getting pushed into form slightly. But anyways, now you have these two parts, which is great. That's what we were looking for. We're going to move on to this dark tan mold and get some parts off of this. So we want the silencer. That's pretty easy. Just, again, lining up the blade 90 degrees, tapping through a few times. That was a thinner point of connection. Like, the plastic wasn't nearly as thick there as in the AR receiver, so that's a lot easier to cut up. And if you ever have anything that's like slightly tilted like that one is, you can just polish it up with a razor blade just like that. I'm going to repeat the same process. Right up here, this is a thin enough point that you really don't need to use the hammer. You can just push through. But if you ever need to use the hammer, just remember to take your time, line up the blade as close to 90 as you can, and try to keep it in that 90. So this is also how I do one of the more trickier cuts that you'll see on my page a fair bit, which is just the AR receiver swap. I've showed a few buddies how to do this in person, but again, it's something I wanted to make more of a formal video so I can see what you guys are able to put out with it too. So you've got the receiver cut off right now, or the hand guard. We're just going to take a little split right here. Again, we're going back to that first step of just making the initial impression on it. You know, you want to line up the razor blade right there, so, and just kind of push into the plastic a bit, and then that way your razor blade has something to sit in. It's not kind of just like sitting there loosely, you know. I'll press down a little bit on that. Perfect. And then I usually take the stock off just because the stock tends to get in the way of these cuts. You can always put it back on. And again, the stock is a pretty light point, so I'm just going to push through that with my hand. And then we're going to make this receiver cut. So we laid the indent down. Our razor blade should just sit right in there. I'm going to give it several short taps. And there we go. We have the receiver split in half. You can see that takes a long while just because of how thick the plastic is. And we have those two crease lines, but again, you just take the back of your razor blade, go over all those, and just get rid of them. For time's sake, I'm not going to go over every single mark, but I'm going to get the edges done just because you don't want those popping through and be invisible when if you have any like gaps in mod, you don't want to see those white stress marks. And then again, we're just going to repeat the process for the black rifle. So we're going to take the stock off really quick. I'm going to do this just so it's quicker. And we're going to line up the blade against the receiver, the upper and lower right there. Perfect. And just repeat the process. All right, perfect. And I actually have a blanket like I have this piece of wood resting on a blanket just because you have pieces that roll off and stuff like this silencer just did, and it helps to have a blanket there to just catch any roly-poly bits. Which again, I'm just taking a second to polish the back of that silencer really quick. So we got the receiver cut off. You see there's a bit of I'm not even going to pretend I know what the name of that part of the rifle is, but a bit of that circle part sticking out. We're just going to clean that up really quick, and we get left with half the AR. Hammering in general isn't going to give you, I would say, ever a perfect cut, but it can get you very close to the point where just polishing up by hand, like what I'm doing right now, is a lot easier. You see, I'm not even using sandpaper. I'm just using the razor blade still to get some of those cuts more flat. Sandpaper can be great, don't get me wrong, but sandpaper bevels a lot of edges, and when you're trying to have two flush things connect to each other, sandpaper can be one of your worst enemies. So just looking at test fits right now, you can see that these two parts are looking pretty good together. Still deciding if I want to use these two parts or the other two combined. You know, just play around, see whichever you feel better with. That's the beauty of these things, is you can just make really as many as you want and whatever combinations you want. A better idea of how I want this mod to go, so we're going to do some more just examples of the hammering method, this time with the magazine removal. Same as before, you're just lining up that razor blade initially, making sure, in this case, it doesn't go too far that it cuts into the grip, and then just hammering it in. Mags tend to come off pretty easy, even though they're thicker. And then again, we're just going to polish up on the other side really quick. And do the same thing on the black lower. Lining up the razor blade, grabbing your hammer, and just push through. And now, something like this, where again, we need a little bit of polish, but we're very close. Before we glue, we're just going to double check some things. You know, it helps to take all the parts that you have that are going to be connected and kind of just hold them together with your hand. See how those fit. See if anything is flush or off level. You can hold it up to a lamp, which will shine light, show any gaps that you might not be able to see. And you just want to go through, make sure everything fits pretty flush, and that there aren't any major loose connection points. For gluing, I really recommend getting a mechanical pencil, just because you can break off the tip of the lead once the glue dries. But if you can't get one of these at like a Walgreens or CVS, definitely go for a toothpick. Just try to stay away from using the nozzle of the glue bottle itself. To hold the glue, I'll just cut open one of these Workshop Wonder Tins, but you can really use anything. It keeps the glue in one space, especially if it has a well like this. It makes it harder for you to accidentally get your hand in there or rest your elbow against it. I'm just going to dip the mechanical pencil into the glue. We're going to connect the receivers first. That's a fair bit of glue. Obviously, you can always go in and add more, but you can't really take out glue, so it definitely helps to be on the lighter side and then add extra instead of having too much. We got the lower and the upper right now. Glue on the upper, we're just going to hold these together, especially if it get in focus. And bam. And then just kind of go to the side, make sure everything is lined up. Try to rotate it in your hands. I know my hand was blocking there for the most part. I was just trying to make sure I got it on right. But, you know, give it a look at different angles. Make sure everything fits flushly, or at least close to flush. But we've got that done now. And set that right to the side, let that dry more, and just do a few more connections. So we're going to connect the silencer right now. Since this is a really small surface area to glue, we're going to try to keep the glue on it light. There's not a lot of space, so when we push these together, it's going to kind of try to push the glue out. Line that up right there. not perfect at all, actually. I take that back. Gonna go again. Looks like I need a little bit more glue on there, which again, like I said, you can always go in, add more. It's really annoying to try to take glue off. So there we go. And it's like, yeah, even though it looks good on one angle, it's really important to rotate it, see how it looks on others, just because even if it's flat on one side, it doesn't mean that it looks good on all the other sides. So you just want to take the time and check. It also helps to, if you rest it against the table like this, that helps keep it flush. Prevents it from bending or gluing at a strange angle. So we got those two chilling right there. I'm going to wait a second for these to glue together, and then we're going to attach the magazine and the back of the stock. Waited a second for everything to dry. We're going to put the mag together now. Mags can be tricky. It's definitely a thing that you got to take your time with. Make sure you get it lined up properly. You don't want too much glue to get pushed out to the sides. And down the line, I'll definitely also take show a little video on pinning for when you want to have alternatives to having glue connections. And pinning can be great, but it's just not always the most applicable strategy. But there we go. We got the magazine on. You know, again, it really helps to check from other angles, make sure it's flush with everything. Stocks can always be tricky, so I tend to leave those for last. So next, we're just going to do the rest of the barrel. Put a little bit of glue there. I apologize that not everything's super in focus. I hope that the steps are clear enough, though. And we're just going to line that up with the rails. Perfect. Okay. We end up with something like that so far. And then you can see all we really have left is the stock. Stocks can be tricky for sure, so I definitely tend to save those for last. But it's just an important process to make sure that it's super flush. You want the stock to be a stable connection. Typically, it gets like jostled the most when you're putting it onto a figure versus all the other parts of the mod. So it's good to just take your time with it. Just gonna go here, try to make it flush on that side, rotate, just make it flush with the rest of the rifle. It's a very slow process for sure. And then again, setting it on the side a lot can help, just because that helps keep it a bit flat and then also give you a good idea of what the profile is. You can see at this point the mod's pretty much done. There's a few more details you could do. You could like drill the scope, swap out a few other things, but for just the first tutorial, I'm happy with this. Hope you guys enjoy. Comment something, comment like literally anything, and in a week or two I'll give out this mod to a random commenter. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy. More tutorials coming soon. Subscribe.